Good.
6:30. There you go. I'm going to recall the June 3rd meeting of the Manchester by the Sea Select Board to order. Jeff,
Yeah.
Brian,
Here.
Kathy, no, Ann, yes,
And John, yes.
Kathy's expected to. Chairman's remarks, I should probably mention that this meeting is being recorded. If you object to being recorded, you shouldn't be here. The action items. And we will need to revisit this when Kathy gets here because she's usually good about taking the things that we should be doing. The only action item for today was the proclamation for Sue Thorn Day. Oh, okay. I thought the wayfinding was going to be today, but no. Okay. Anyone have any comments on the action items? Our first article of business is to nominate officers, and for that purpose, I will step down and let John. Give John.
All right, the authority to do that, okay, and I will nominate Ann as chairperson for this coming year.
Second.
Debate, discussion?
No discussion? Ready to vote? Yes?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Okay. In my new position, I would take nominations for vice chair.
Nominate John Round, vice chair.
Second.
Okay,
Jeff?
no further comments?
Jeff?
Yep. Yes.
And so, yes. Okay. Well, that was fun. The next part of the reorganization, is, we need to think about who is going to be liaison to, various boards. The most critical, are the ones that Becky had, which I believe was primarily the planning board.
Mhm.
She's on the way finding and will report them as a position, that's her position.
Wasn't she Harbor Advisory as well?
Yes, she was.
Okay,
There is, was.
yes,
Those three, planning board, board of health, and harbor advisory. So those need to be
Yep.
reassigned,
Mhm.
and then any other shuffling.
I suggest that we actually push this off later in the meeting because Kathy needs to be here too.
I agree.
So advisory. Said the third one and I've already forgotten. Thank you. Board of Health.
Um. I'd like to do the harbor advisory.
Oh, let me give just,
Yeah.
let me give it some thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the
Take your temperature.
complication with Board of Health is that they meet in the morning, but it's usually 8 o'clock,
8:30.
8:30, yeah, so. Okay, oh, look who's here.
It sounds like for Karen.
It's pretty good.
Good.
Hope you didn't run out of electricity.
We were talking about dividing up, maybe reorganizing, but certainly dividing up the liaisons that Becky did.
Okay.
And they are the Harbor Advisory, Planning, and Board of Health. And so far, since, is there one that you would like?
Well, I was wondering if there's one in particular that our new member was interested in.
I could do the harbor advisory. I couldn't do the health Board of Health, because they meet in the morning.
And I would have a problem with that as well.
Oh, it's in the morning? What mornings is that?
Usually meet Thursday mornings.
I might be able to do that one. I think I can do that. Not the next two Thursdays. Oh, you can always zoom in, right? Okay. I can do Thursday.
Let's see, we've got some things to spread around, and the other ones, we know what we've done this past year. My only comment with regard to the ones that I've got, Concom, I have a kind of tough time making because it conflicts with other activities. I'm fine with the Public Works and the Historic District Commission, which I sit on,
Mhm.
and the Council on Aging, where I'm pretty active.
Mhm.
And I would like to say ship the library trustees in and the Concom out,
Mhm.
if that's possible.
Who's Concom?
Pardon me?
And what time would that,
What
would,
Concom is, here's the challenge. A lot of times it meets when it's supposed to be Tuesdays, 6:30. But sometimes it meets, we have a lot of Tuesdays we meet because of Monday holidays, right on top of it. Well, you know, it's Tuesday, 6:30. But it's like every third Tuesday or fourth Tuesday. It's a little bit erratic, but it is Tuesdays at 6:30.
Yeah, they've gone back to every.
Every other,
Well,
or first and third?
I figured if it's first and third or second.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
They have shifted that.
Okay, all right, because it was erratic. If you really had to look on their
Yes.
schedule, you could not say, oh, Tuesday, I gotta be there.
well, I get the ZBA,
That's
Yeah.
a responsibility.
That's a big one.
and I'm acting as the informal, there is no real, title for, no real role for, public safety. I
Mhm.
with those guys all the time, so, Concom might be fun.
Okay. I currently do school and I'm on the MBTA zoning.
Yeah,
So-
that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I can get any.
no, as chair, that's
You know, really, I think that you're probably capped out,
probably,
but I can try Concom. We can give it a
Yeah.
go.
I mean, I'll pick up the planning board. And see how that goes.
We're waiting on you.
Great, they meet tomorrow night. And, yeah, there's sometimes a problem with them as well when we have a Monday meeting and
Right.
they're on,
Usually we're off cycle.
yeah,
They're second and fourth,
but, right.
but not
while they're-
always.
Well, while they're working on the
Right.
MBTA stuff, they're meeting
Right.
a lot. So I can take, I will be following, I will be at the next meeting, the meeting tomorrow. So if you want to pick up after that,
Okay, because I'm still doing the Essex Tech thing
Right,
too,
of course.
so, yeah.
yes. Okay, I seem to have a name beside most of the empty ones.
yeah, I think, I'm just looking at. So Kathy, you're pretty stable.
Yeah, I think, I'd like to keep the downtown improvement and bike and ped for one more
Yep.
year, because I'm just getting them working together.
Mhm.
I'm flexible on FinCom if somebody wants to pick that up. This year was hard for me to get to those meetings, but next year I should be, fine. But if somebody wanted to pick up FinCom, they're certainly welcome to, otherwise I'll keep it.
I think you got it.
Okay,
I
okay,
can't balance my checkbook, you know what I'm saying?
okay, yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
And I've got Parks and Rec as well, so.
yes.
Yep,
Yep. And that's been busy.
Yeah.
Great,
All right. So
I think that settles that, and we can move on to our next agenda item, which is,
I just need you to officially vote the
okay,
newspaper of record.
oh, I'm sorry, yes. Do I have a motion?
I move that the select board designates the Cricket and the Gloucester Daily Times as the alternate official newspaper for public notices for the town.
Second.
Yes.
Discussion?
Yes.
Okay, was it?
Jeff says yes, Brian says, Kathy says yes, Ann says yes.
John, yes.
Okay. I'm going to, I always mangle this. Nick,
You're sure, but
Disherbanen,
Hmm.
you have applied for a place on the Open Space and Recreation Committee, and you've given us some notes on why you think that's a committee that you're interested in, and we'd like to hear from you.
Well, I can go over a few of the points that I made here. I've been a town resident since 1985. Raised both my daughters here through K through 12. Serve on the Manchester Ethics Education Fund Board for the last roughly a dozen years. I recently retired. Been in the advertising business for 45 years. Have contributed some of those skills to the education fund, kind of relaunched their website and maintain that. Some of the communications moved over to the digital realm now, and we're trying to get a little bit more sophisticated about that. My interest in this particular I want to call it a board.
It's a committee, but
Committee, yeah. That committee was kind of, it was brought to my attention by Terry Kalman,
Mhm.
who was a bike rider and a friend of mine, and quite familiar with the hiking trails and both at Manchester and contiguous communities owned by various nonprofits like Greenbelt and Trustees, cross country ski when there's snow, which is not often these days. Bike a lot, road bike mainly, not much of a mountain biker. And my understanding was that Terry was interested in creating more awareness of the trails in the various public lands around Manchester and perhaps contiguous communities as well. Many of the trails overlap into Essex and that sort of thing. Encourage residents, visitors, citizens to become aware of and utilize those trails. Possibly increase access, signage. I'm sure they're involved in recommendations for maintenance. In any case, that's my main area of interest. Some of the policy things and that sort of thing, I sat in on their call today, their meeting today. It's certainly of concern to me and of interest, but I think I'm mainly interested in the recreational part of it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Where do I start with you, Nick? No, it's, so Terry described all of these needs or likes,
Yes.
and you said, all of these are great. You want to jump in? It sounds like it's a perfect match to me. So there are those needs, I guess, the visibility of some of the activities there need to be, or opportunities, I should say.
Sure.
Greater, and I know, given your background, you're a good guy for that. Given your advertising background and how to raise the profile of things, so. Was there anything in particular that piqued your interest when you were chatting with Terry? Is Terry the chairperson of that committee now, or I'm not sure who it is, but
I think he's a representative.
Steve.
Provided,
Steve Gang.
Safety account.
Well, you know Steve Gang, I know also.
Well, I'm a communicator, so I try to think of ways in which you could promote these gifts that the town is surrounded by. Certainly, recently Terry sent out an email. There are a couple of links to there's an app called Ride with GPS, which you can download on your phone and then follow trails. And he's downloaded 2 mountain bike trails or kind of wooded road combinations in the Gordon Woods. Another one that goes up through Magnolia and back. They're posted, but unless you know what you're looking for, where to look for it, and how to use the app, they're a start. I think it's terrific. I should add also, in an effort to create a project for myself, I launched a website about a year ago called Off Course. And the idea is that it covers the North Shore more generally, and offers suggestions for things to do on the North Shore that aren't for visitors particularly, that aren't what I call the 3 Ws, whale watches, woodmen's, and the winch music. And there are a number of
Advertising now.
there's a number of local ideas that I've written posts on, and I'll try to take some photos, provide a map, a visit to Misery Island, hike, a road bike ride around Essex, Manchester, Beverly Farms, that sort of thing. Certainly visit the site if you feel you're interested in what I'm doing there. It's one of those projects that kind of is only as successful as the time and effort you put into it. I'm having a hard time figuring out my retirement life balance with something that starts to feel very much like a job. So it's a work in progress, I'd put it that way, but it's a fun thing to work on. It's an example of the type of thing that is very much aligned with, I think, what the committee is part of the mission of the committee. And I think there's some opportunities there. I always say, it's always 5% in the thinking of great ideas, because everybody has great ideas, 95% in the doing, and the doing's the tough part. So it'd be fun to ideate around ways in which one could kind of achieve the goals of the committee, and also improve access or awareness of access and that sort of thing. I think trustees has done a very good job with signage. That's a good example. And certainly Cedar Swamp has a wonderful kind of reception board, map, and all that sort of thing. But with one of these guys in your hands, you can go anywhere in the woods around here, and put together 3-mile loops, 2-mile loops, 1-mile loops. That just All Trails is another app that I use a lot. So I think some of the technology things are, you don't have to look too far to see that everybody's walking around with one of these in their hands, particularly the next generation, the generation after that. So getting kind of more mobile app oriented is one idea, not without costs and, again, time and effort. But I look forward to contributing not only to ideas, but to the actual work necessary to achieve, as I say, some of the goals of the committee, specifically around access.
Thanks.
John asked my question, and I think your skill set is a really unique, fills a unique need of the committee, so thank you for offering the time.
Thank you.
Shall I channel Becky?
That's your job now.
And now that you've got all these ad vocations, you'll be able to, with all that's going on, we'll have time for this, as well?
I don't know. That's a good question. When I joined the Education Fund Board, Jack Abbott told me that it would met once a year and there might be 10 hours of work. Well, it turned into much more work than that. I was happy to contribute, continue to contribute to the board. And I don't quite, I understand any meetings is part of the obligation. It's hard for me to say exactly how much work is required beyond that, but I live in town here, happy to meet with like-minded people and find the time to get some of the ideas kicked off and acted on. I don't know, I can't put an hours per week estimate. I think I know our John works for sure. He's a good friend of mine, and we've got regular tennis days, which he has to opt quite often. So anyway, it's a good question, Brian, and I'll generally say that, yeah, I'm willing to make some commitments and work as part of the team.
Sounds like you have some great skills and some good ideas. So what is your website again?
It's called offcourse.us. The idea is that it's not the predictable stuff on a tourism site.
Yeah, I'd like to check that out. But so thank you for doing this.
Sure enough.
Greg, as Nick was talking, I'm not sure if the wayfinding committee, how broad a portfolio they're dealing with in wayfinding. But if you get broader into trails, that ought to be kind of an add-on or some sort of a bolt-on aspect to all of that.
That's a good point. You may find our next select board meeting has some agenda items of interest based on what
Okay.
you just talked about.
Yeah, so that's why I bring it up.
17th, may want to tune in.
So we don't lose that thought, because that can broaden that scope of activity.
So I move that the select board appoint Nick Sherbinen
It's a tough one.
to the Open Space and Recreation Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027.
Second,
Ready to vote? Jack?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
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 thank you very much.
Thank you all
thank you.
thanks, Nick.
for that vote of confidence.
Mhm. Now you're free to stick around, but I know you've got a very busy retirement schedule.
Okay, the next volunteer application is Marion Powers for the cultural committee. That's it here.
Sure.
Sure. Just give us a brief idea of why you think that will be an interesting position and what you have to contribute.
I've actually been working on the committee, not a voting committee this year.
Mhm.
And we just Diane Kilgore, who is person in charge, asked me to be a part of it. And just wanting to make it more dynamic and visible than in the past. I mean, I was aware of it only because previously I was the art teacher in Manchester High School for 18 years. So I knew about it, but I didn't hear that much. I think I got maybe once. I think we got money for some activity. I'm not sure, but it wasn't in the top of my mind. Anyway, so but we want to make it exciting. And this year we started a speaker series, which to me took off and was fun. We're trying to do a little collaboration with other people like the Manchester Museum and other people have contacted us. The cultural Manchester Cultural, as this Massachusetts is too, is to promote the arts, the humanities, and the sciences in culture. So it's not just what you would consider art. my part would bring the art in, and that's what I'm excited about, because we haven't done that yet this year. We've had a number of speakers, but none art related, and I have lots of ideas. I mean, I don't know, about to say it. I would like to involve the whole town, not just the artists, the well-known artists or people who we know can paint. I think as a teacher, I would search for the people and bring it out in the kids, those that said, oh, I can't draw, or I can't paint. I'm not a representational painter or artist. I mean, I have done that, but kind of put that aside and gone on to other things. So, I would like to see different style, different mediums used, maybe more abstract. Every city has their art association, and often you see a lot of similar things. But I'd like to bring maybe different styles and different mediums, and to involve anywhere from little kids to the elderly. That's me. But everyone. But to give everyone the opportunity to participate and be a part of it, not just restricted. When you hear the arts, you think of only the people who can do that. So, so I'm excited to do something here.
Jeff, do you have any questions?
I like the idea of getting people hands-on involved that, normally wouldn't be able to participate. So I think that's
Mhm.
great.
Thank you. Yeah, that's, to me, that's the most exciting part. I had done, remember at the B&T, I did this drawing little event. And it was for people who thought they couldn't draw a straight line. And those are the ones I really wanted to get to. And they had so much fun and realized they could only, I knew the materials to give them and, to make them feel good, but it just got them started. And a few of them since then have, I'm not giving myself that much credit that it was that night that sparked it. But it did give them, the energy
Confidence to
and
move
confidence,
forward,
to get going. Mhm.
That's great.
I think you answered the question because you said you're already involved in the committee.
Mhm.
So now it's with an official capacity.
Yeah, I've been involved, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, no, you answered the questions I was gonna ask about particular interest area, and that's always something, but I think your skill set would be a wonderful inclusion.
So I'm one of those guys who
Yeah.
can't draw a line, as opposed to Nick, who as a creative director can do everything. You should talk. You two should talk a little bit, but when it says cultural committee, culture goes all different directions, and it really is defined by who's on the committee and what is your interest and expertise. And I said, when I think art, in and around the town, I guess we have the plein air that comes through periodically, and I assume that you know about that group and some others, et cetera. But to broaden the interest, it sounds like you're the right person as a teacher or ex-teacher. The skill sets that involve to get people excited. So we're excited. And I'm happy that you're formally raising your hand.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I guess, is it me?
I don't know. What it is.
Let's see.
Oh, actually, it's me.
Okay.
Actually, it's John.
Okay,
I move that the select board appoint Marion Powers to the Cultural Council for a term to expire on June 30th, 2027.
Second.
ready to vote? John,
Yes.
Anne says yes,
Yes.
Kathy says yes.
Yes.
And yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for taking an official position.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great.
Good job, Andy.
Good.
Even if because one of the members is late, it's still.
Yeah, so you don't need to.
The next thing on our agenda is utility rate discussion. I suggest that we take the easy part first, which is raising the sewer rates by 2.75%.
Yeah, we'll officially do that at a later meeting.
At a later meeting.
We can have that.
We can, okay. Does anyone have anything else to suggest about the sewer rates?
That is the easy part.
Well, I'd like to start
Easier.
with something. Okay, and, in setting us up for this discussion, Greg has suggested that there are, the three possibilities, and of course, I can't really remember one of them. Um, um, ah, that we consider, having a three different models for the rates. Chuck has suggested a fixed fee on the water rates to deal with the major work that we have to do. First, we have the new water meters throughout town. And then we have all of the work to mediate VFAs and replace pipes and other infrastructure. What we have done in the past is leave the rate structure the way it is and increase it for inflation by 2.75%. And the third is to adopt something more like what the Water Resource Protection Group suggested, which is to reduce the number of tiers to perhaps 4 and increase the difference between the rates as usage goes up. I think currently the difference between our lowest rate and our highest rate is less than 10%. And the Water Resource Protection Committee suggested a much higher increase over time. And we've kind of stumbled on that. And I'd like to hear what you think. I'm going to start with Kathy.
Okay, so I agree that having kind of a fixed rate to deal with the core infrastructure, if you will, would be helpful. So I'm on board with that. Regarding the variable rates, as I've said in the past, I believe we have too many. And each rate should have a purpose. So if you start with a flat rate where regardless of your usage, everybody pays the same, then you think about reasons why you want to introduce another rate. So I think we have like 5 now or 6.
Six.
No.
6 total.
That is way too many, especially when the differential is so small. So I would just, I agree, we need to reduce the number of rates, and however many we decide we need, each one should have a purpose, whether it's conservation or to cover extra cost that a particular customer base might be driving, but they should each have a purpose. Otherwise, there's no reason to have it. Those are my thoughts.
I heard what people were saying last year. And I'm concerned about penalizing large families.
Okay.
And so the water usage, okay? So I do agree with, plus, I think it becomes quite confusing when we get that many rates. So I'd like to simplify the rates. And I just, I don't want to penalize people for using water that they have to. Yes, conservation is an issue. Probably we're gonna end up with a water problem this summer. Like the snow this year, you know. I don't know how the well's looking right now.
The pond is very full, the well is good season.
So, you know,
Right now, I have no concerns, but that's subject to change. Very short notice.
So I'm pretty much in Kathy's camp.
What happens to people who have water but don't have sewer? How does that?
The way that works is if you have sewer, you get charged for the amount of water that you take in.
use?
if you have a second meter for your lawn or garden, that does not go on the sewer. People who don't have sewer just don't have a sewer surcharge.
Whatever their
Whatever water they
tier would
use.
be is
Yep.
just for the water end of it.
Yep, yep.
So the sewer is a separate rate, if you will,
Right.
that is based on your water usage. And it's based it's a flat volumetric rate right now. There's no tiers between sewer usage. It's just a flat
Based on
15.
what,
$15 a 100 cubic feet or something like that
right?
for on the sewer side for this infinite amount.
So that
If you
wouldn't
have that
change
much.
though?
No.
Okay.
John,
Yeah, I am in favor of a combination approach where you've got the capital cost that you're gonna be putting on as an add-on. And I'm not sure what that number is. We don't have to be specific about that right now. I know that $75 has been something that has been put out there. These meters, just the meters standalone will probably cost $500 or $600. So you're looking at $75 a quarter, do the math. I don't know, 7, 8 quarters or so, something like that, just to retire that. But there's other stuff coming down with PFAS, et cetera. So, but I'm in favor of putting that on there. And I'm also in favor of simplifying the tiers from 6 to 4. Right now, the tiers, there are 6 tiers and they range from about $6.50 per 100 cubic feet to $9. So it's less than a 50% increase. I'm in favor of putting those 4 tiers that cover about the same amount of volume, but, and at the low rate, leave it just where it is for the first tier. And actually, the first 2 tiers that exist now would be just the 1 tier when you condense it to 4. And have the top tier go up to, I don't know, somewhere between $15 and $20, but you know, in the area of double where it is now. And the fact is that affects the number of people you can count on one hand. It's really, and nobody in the winter. These are only people that deal with irrigation, would they ever get to that top tier. In the winter, nobody's up there. Everybody would, in theory, be probably in tier 1 and tier 2, a new tier 1 and tier 2. So we can discuss what those numbers are. They don't have to be as extreme as we had discussed 6 months or so ago. But I think that we have to start to push that along because we do use more water than just about anybody in the state on a per capita basis.
you need to take out the part that we're currently using to wash the filters in the sewer.
Yes, that number has to go away, but even with that,
Yeah.
we're still at
Yeah.
80
Yeah, we're,
gallons per person per day, and the average on the North Shore is like 55.
We're clean people.
We are, a lot of grass.
I was going to suggest 4 tiers, where the first tier is, what caps out at what a family of 10 would use for, at the state recommended rate of what, 65 gallons a day per person. So that takes care of the big families. There aren't any more Wilworth families.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, the Wilworths had 13 kids. But that was a long time ago. And I would
Water is
suggest,
cheaper than.
everything was cheaper. Kids were cheaper by the dozen. I would suggest raising so that we have 4 tiers. One, the base rate at whatever it would cost for a family of 8 or 10 or pick a number. And then, another rate that's 25 or 30% higher. Another rate that's 25 or 30% higher than the second rate. And a fourth that's 25 to 30% higher. That works out that the base rate, the highest rate is twice what the base rate is. And I don't have a name for the 2 intermediate rates, but those are moderate consumption, and the highest rate will probably affect only people who do extensive watering. And just take that formula and work backward to what your operating costs are. And you should be able to come up with 4 rates that are significantly differentiated, but not punitively differentiated.
So you're saying the family of 8 or whatever, that would be the top of tier 1,
Yes,
Okay.
So you're saying, John, maybe you can speak to this. 75% of the residents will fall in this first.
In the first tier, the new first tier, 83% of the people will never get out of the first tier.
I'm good with that.
Okay, and so the second tier is, just about maybe 10%. And that, I mean, it really drops off rather dramatically. But we're consolidating what the existing first two tiers into one tier, and that is so many people. That is so many people.
I think that's a good start, and then maybe after a year of that under our belt, we could take a look and see if we really need 4 tiers and maybe drop it down. to
Well,
3,
maybe, yeah.
Right, but I think it's a good start. Anything we can do to reduce the
The,
number of
the other
tiers.
part is I understand the advantage of having a known fixed income.
Mhm.
So that the fixed capital, but I would support it to pay for the new water meters. Because everybody who gets a new water meter is incurring a fixed cost.
Mhm.
Depending on the size of the meter.
Yeah, I mean, one thing you have to point out with the capital overlay that's involved here, $75 or $80. I will bet that a third to a half of the people, that will double their water bill.
It certainly would double mine.
Yeah, it would double mine. My water bill in the winter is $35. And that's a $75 fee on top of that. So for 2 people in a house, yeah, that's
Yeah,
not
but-
atypical, but
But this will pay for some costs that are not dependent on water usage.
yes.
So the $75 sounds appropriate for paying back just the meters. And paying back the meters will take some period of time, and
Well, so.
we look at this every year.
Yeah, I mean, so I tried to lay out a couple of things, just to kind of give kind of the other side of this whole argument or discussion, I should say. I generally agree with everything you guys said. I'm not afraid of any of that. What I am concerned about is the long-term viability of just jacking up the higher rates and not having a base income. And if you're considering a capital fee or some base fee only kind of in passing,
Mhm.
then what happens when, the reason you guys have the $35 bill is because it's subsidized at the high end. And what you're trying to do is promote conservation, which will emphatically lower that, or will have folks that are in those higher tiers, and then they're gonna drop down and drill a private well, or maybe they'll conserve, and we'll get what we want in terms of conservation. That does not help me pay beyond the meters or for the other stuff. And again, at the end of the day, we're gonna pay for PFAS one way or the other. I'm just presenting alternatives that would maybe help and make people understand. I personally would say, if I'm paying $35 a month for clean, fresh drinking water year
A
round,
quarter.
or
A quarter.
less, a quarter, then I'm getting my money's worth out of that water utility, and I should be willing to help
My
develop
problem,
those
my
capital costs
problem
going forward.
is that the capital costs are dependent on the water usage. So I'd like to see the capital costs spread out based on on water usage rather than as a plain fixed fee. But
But so the other side of that, though, is when, if we pick a base number that's developed based on, 8 person per household or something along those lines. You're not gonna get to the point where that's paying for, I think you even said yourself, Ann, like, that's paying for the operating, that's not paying for the capital. And so I'm trying to kind of,
we may
Meet
need.
somewhere
we
where
may-
that
we
works.
may need, we may need to raise the rates significantly.
so I guess the other end of that spectrum, like I said, I thought about this kind of a lot, and I kind of the pitfalls associated with kind of each way. There's no clear path forward, we're trying the best we can to make sure that we do everything in accordance with the rules that we have to follow. So I understand that there's a lot of moving parts, but the other issue with, kind of having these knee-jerk slingshot reactions with the rates is we lose kind of that stability over time. And, not saying to a fixed income family, okay, this year we're at $30 a quarter, next year we're at $130 a quarter, what I mean? That's the other end, rather than what I think that I'm trying to zero in, or what I presented in the past in terms of this capital fee is, if we're looking at a 20-year kind of runway to pay for some big ticket items, take the meters out. The meters will, like John said, that can be paid for in a year or two. But we have much bigger needs at a larger level, and I think that if we implement it in a smart way, that we will be able to kind of keep steady. And, you know, not one person is gonna hurt to the point where they can't afford their water bill, but, you know, we do have to recoup and, you know, bring in some of this money that we're gonna have to dole out over the capital. And so I'm just nervous that if we go too far one way and we say it's only gonna pay for the meters, or it's only gonna be at the very high tiers, that we're gonna be right back here a year from now, and I'm gonna be saying, you know what? We don't have the money in the capital fund, and we really need to double down on these things, or in, you know, so I'm not looking at this capital fee as something that stands in perpetuity. I'm looking at it as something that really is a means to an end. That, you know, if we get better news on the bids for water meters, we're not gonna lower it by, you know, if the bids come in at 750,000 versus 1.5, we're not gonna cut it in half on, you know, after the first quarter. But, and the same thing can be said about PFAS. You know, we know it's gonna be a large number going forward, but it might not be 27 million, it might be 15. So you know, we kind of need a hedge against both ways that might work. And so I can't sit here today and say what these numbers are, but I can say that they are real and they are coming, and we should be thoughtful of that. So that's all I'm trying to think.
I have a, just kind of an in-between thought, I guess. In my mind, the fixed cost, if you will, rate, whatever we want to call it, fixed cost that we charge each homeowner should cover some basic infrastructure, maybe not all capital. Okay, so PFAS, in my mind, that's, you have to clean as much water as you're going to use, right? Is that?
Well, so you could look at that a different way.
But you have a basic infrastructure.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I'm saying. What I'm suggesting is, in order to have a fixed fee for something other than meters, come back to us with the specific items that you think should be covered by a fixed fee, rather than saying all capital should be a fixed fee. There are probably some things that are truly, even though we might have to undergo a capital expense, there may be things that are still usage dependent, which really should be kind of baked into a rate. So I'm just wondering, can we sharpen our pencils a little bit rather than say, it feels like this is an all or nothing discussion, and I don't think it
Yeah,
needs
no,
to be.
I mean, and
So-
one way or another, we're gonna meet at the final number. It's just gonna be, you know, how we get there. I
But
guess
so, for
I-
example, if the pipe on a street needs to be replaced, does it matter how much water, you know, one neighbor uses versus another? No, there should be a base fee to fix the pipe. So that's where my head is at. I think there's a lot that's in that capital bucket. Maybe some of it is usage dependent and others not, and we just sharpen the pencil.
So I mean, like, at a micro level or macro level, like, none of the things that we're talking about would happen at less if we were using less water. So like, just take individuals out of it, individual bills out of it. We are in for the full upgrade of PFAS, but it's not gonna be different. Because we're only pumping, you know, 500,000 gallons a day versus 750,000 gallons a day, you know, in any circumstance, whether there's increased conservation, less conservation, you know, it's not gonna matter. You know, what will matter is the market at the time and, you know, how we go about doing these things, which is, I think, my job in terms of the engineering aspects of it. But it's still gonna be, you know, assessed, if you will, over the, you know, the entirety of the, you know, paying population. So whatever that is. So, but I think that you're right, that we could, you know, my numbers, you know, I think it was in my presentation from 6 months ago. You know, every million or so that we take in capital fee annually goes to about $12 million worth of bonding, which I think that was over a 20-year standard. You know, don't quote me on that. It's all subject to interest rates and bonding and everything else. But so the idea is, you know, what I laid out just in kind of napkin math is, you know, we have gradation of sizes of meters, which correspond to usage. So that's where I think that plays in. And then we say, okay, at the very, you know, small end, you know, standard single family residential, what I have in my house, what, you know, probably all of you guys have, is a 5/8 or a 3/4 meter. That's the 75 fee that, you know, I think John's looking up. There are many other places in town where there is not. It's a less, less of that population, but it is the bigger places where bigger meter, more water goes through. That's what you're paying for. And so, I think that's a reasonable, defensible way to move forward with a capital fee. Now, it doesn't have to be 75, it doesn't have to be 150, it can be any number you want in between that, and I'm happy to run the numbers and see where we end up. But if we're talking, 25 million in capital over the next 5 years, I kind of need to take in $2 million a year, one way or another. So that could be 75% through this capital fee, it can be 1%, but it's gonna be something. So, though, that's kind of the give and take that I'm looking at on paper. And I'm happy to run the numbers anyway.
Suggestion, maybe we could have 3 options to choose from. I mean, or I don't want to prescribe a
Well-
number of options, but if
So
we can
Also,
have
the
some
other
options.
factor, of course, is the general fund. In the past, we relied heavily on the general fund for water capital in particular,
Mhm.
a little less so on the sewer side, but.
So what percentage of the residents use town water versus have a well?
Oh, it's 90, it's in the high
Like
90s.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
okay.
Loading Place Road and
Okay.
section.
Literally a handful.
Handful, okay.
On the water side.
So anyway, I think we're having, a good discussion and having some specific options.
Could you,
But we certainly can run some scenarios.
yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so this is just to kind of,
Yeah.
let's get back into it, set us up for a future meeting where we need to vote, but if I'm gonna, take the time to run some numbers, I kind of need more direction. Like if we're trying to vote tonight, I would have no chance of getting it.
Well, if we didn't have these meters and this PFAS, I mean, we just been hovering along for the past 10 or 15, I don't know, forever. With just the enterprise fund, plus a few bucks coming from whatever debt gets retired. We always pump a couple of $1 million into the pipes. And that's the way it's been going. And now we've got to change our look. We've got meters and we have set up no reserves. Meters have, what did you say, 20 years?
Yeah.
All right, we're there. And we never set up any reserves, say, hey, we got to replace this.
Yeah.
We had an enterprise fund, which is several $100,000, but we got to find some other money.
Yeah.
But more to the point, the PFAS is coming down and that's going to be a much broader financed activity, but you need to set up for capital going forward on a fairly
Yeah, I mean,
continual
we're
basis.
really living off the, investment that was made 140 years ago when they put in 90% of the pipe in town. And that has been bought and paid for a century. If
Been
it
deferred
weren't that
maintenance.
way, we would be accelerating a lot of things on top of the PFAS in the years.
Okay, we're looking for, Kathy is like, so,
So I think, I'm taking some notes and I think what I would like to do is go back and run some numbers strictly based on fees, but in addition, that will also take into account, I think I've heard everybody say, let's consolidate the rates, make the rates make a little bit more
Make-
intuitive sense,
we would like, I
And
think we would like
see
to
where
have
that gets
the
us.
highest rate. At least twice. About twice the lowest rate, and we'd like to have the lowest rate cover. A family that's using a state average amount of water,
Yeah.
so that. And then let's come up with some numbers. We'll pick one for this year. I think none of us are interested in just raising the rates by 2.75%.
No.
So
And I guess, so since we're here and we're talking about it, and I think I have 2 minutes
You
left
have,
on the
you
agenda.
have 5 minutes. No, you have 6 minutes.
How do we want to think about sewer in these exact same terms? Because there is a fairly large project on the horizon. We have approval for it at the town level. It's a little bit different, not 100% of the town is on sewer, so it doesn't usually come out of the capital on the town general fund side. It usually is more predominantly from the sewer enterprise fund.
Mhm.
But this is a much different animal than, like you said, in the past 20 years.
What numbers? Is this part of the bond issue or is this outside of that?
Well, so it's improved based on the bond issue, but it's, we still have to figure out how to pay for it. I mean, I think the way it would work is you could assess it 75% via the general fund and 25% via the sewer fund, but we have the
Usually we
ability
spend,
to.
The other way around.
The other way around.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. But, or we could, we could think about this holistically as a you know, and because it's a flat rate, there's no tiers, we can really, and nobody's putting in a septic that's on sewer, they're kind of beholden to whatever the rate is. We could literally just do it with the rate, but we could, you know, get fancier with it if we wanted.
Can you give us some numbers for next time, for, what it would do to the sewer rates if we put 75% of the bond income, yeah, the bond expenses. The annual bond expenses, we put 75% on the sewer rates and 25% on
General.
general fund. And we would start paying it now, which is way before we're gonna start actually having bond expenses, so it'll build.
Yeah, so we could build up you know, for probably a year or two before we have a contractor that's invoicing us for those exact expenses.
It's not until, even after they invoice us, we get
90 days.
a year's grace before we start paying for it.
Exactly.
So I know we're asking you for a lot of numbers, but it would be very helpful if you could have those numbers for us, you know, a week or two before July 1st.
Next week. No.
Wow, that's next week.
Hmm.
Well,
No, I'll have you something.
okay,
I'm
so
sure if he wants to. Since you're teaching too.
I hope we've given you direction.
Yeah, I just wanted everybody to understand kind of the gravity of the
And-
situation.
and-
Kind of at a crossroads.
On the other hand, it is traditional that the town has, the general fund has picked up the costs of water upgrades.
Mhm.
So you're
Yeah.
proposing a different model than the town has seen, probably maybe a healthier model.
Well, I think the other end of that is, you know, we have been using the general fund to pay for water, water pipe. I
Yep.
haven't exactly said I want to stop that practice. I said that we have other things that need to happen that we
Okay.
can try and pay for over here. We have a backlog of $40 million worth of pipe that needs to get done over the next couple decades, so there's no stopping this train, we're just doing it as we can.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Other than that, the play was great.
Ah, come on. You've never seen us when we're meeting.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, Chuck.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep.
Okay. The next item are harbor, rules and regulation changes. And yeah,
I would too. So a slightly revised
yeah,
set was sent to you. I did some editing,
mhm,
cleaning up some language
mhm.
from that first draft. I don't think there were any substantive changes.
I didn't compare.
There were a couple made today, this afternoon. I had some help with a couple of changes, but they'll be.
Okay. Do we need an introduction by Bion, or can we go just directly to questions since we've had this for some time? John,
Well, I mean, I can go through, I made copies of some of the sheets where I said, I didn't know what was going on here. Can you explain? And you can do that, Bion?
I will certainly try. I can only try.
Okay. Town approved mooring service providers on page 10. Couple of people eliminated. I'm not sure why they were there. Just tell me what's going on.
So, companies come and go. Darn Mooring is no longer in business, so they don't need to be one of the
Okay.
main companies that we have approved. Rocker is out of business.
no,
By and large, they're still on here because they do service their own moorings. So,
Okay.
Manchester Yacht Club captain doesn't service moorings anymore, so he didn't need to be in here. And then there are people who service their own moorings, they're qualified divers. Mooring service is not rocket science. You if you have the proper shackles, size shackles and chains and appropriate equipment, you can put these together yourself.
And you have the specifications for the materials in the rules.
Yes.
I had a question on page 12. Individual may be signed a maximum of 2 recreational permits. Well, maybe I knew that, maybe I didn't.
Yes.
That's, I think maybe that was in here, you just modified it a little bit. So how many mooring holders have 2 moorings?
Not very many. I think 4 or 5.
Oh, really low number.
Yeah, I could go in and double check. That doesn't include, so that doesn't include, commercial. So we
Okay.
have Manchester Marine and Crocker's Boatyard who both have more than that. Right, now, this does specifically say recreational.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on that, if I may, because I had the same
Yes,
question
yeah.
listed. I was wondering, given the length of the wait list for moorings, why we would allow people to have more than one. If there's so few that have 2,
Mhm.
would it make sense just to grandfather those people in, not take away their mooring, but not let any new people have 2?
Sure.
I mean, you gotta really, 20-year wait list. I just.
Almost as long as Marblehead.
I think it's crazy. If doing so wouldn't hurt anybody, it sounds like it wouldn't.
You get requests for 2?
So I don't get requests for 2. I think one of the things that's coming up that has rankled some people is people realize the wait list is long. So rather than go on a wait list at 25 or 30, those 25, 30-year-olds who are parents are putting whole families on. So if you look at the wait list, there'll be areas where there'll be 3, 4, 6 family members right in a row. So, but that's not the same as one person having 2 moorings.
Right.
So if that's something you'd like to see changed, that's.
I guess I don't understand what's the downside? Especially if families
You
are
get
already
money.
working around that by putting every member of the family.
Yeah, the downside for the people who have 2 boats, who want to keep them in Manchester, but I'm happy
I agree with you.
grandfather
So
existing.
Yeah,
levels,
I
and
just
then
don't wanna hurt anybody, but
one.
no more.
Okay, all right,
I agree.
Anybody that has more than 2 right now?
commercial,
No, just strictly
Yeah.
commercial, that's
just
it.
commercial.
Okay.
John, you were going through?
Yeah, I'm just kind of going through here. Just that matter of curiosity, and it kind of affects this mooring list. And of course, if they put all their kids down, that's $20 a throw every year for you,
That's
for us. So that's a plus, okay. On page 14, Mass DEP moorings may be passed to an immediate family member. That's a state rule. I find that kind of
Right,
strange.
so it's important to remember that I am actually an agent for the town, but I'm also an agent for Mass DEP.
Mhm.
The permit that I issue is a 10A state DEP permit. And state regulation is that it may pass to an immediate family member. We had a case just this last year, or was it this, I guess it was this last year, of a person who had a mooring in Manchester. Elderly person, nephew had been taking care of the mooring for a long time. Elderly family member passes away, nephew thinks they're getting the mooring, and the DEP ruled against them. And that has happened more than once in this harbor.
So is the language designed just to make it explicit what constitutes immediate family members under the law?
Sure.
Okay. Jumping to page 23. Fees. I was just curious, the town hall lawn grant fees, how is that managed?
It is not.
I mean, people just show up, put a boat in.
John's asking all my questions.
They aren't, it isn't. That was put in there some number of years ago because the HAC at the time was concerned with grant being used and nothing being contributed. And now it's, some of this stuff, this afternoon with some help. The recreational fees were stricken because we don't have the staffing to. put
Yeah,
someone over there.
I would think that's very hard to, people just show up with a boat and they put it in.
Well, so in Kittery, we have two boat ramps. One was heavily used. I was told by the people I work for, not enough people to staff it. I disagree. We put someone over there and maybe $4,000 the first year. They make about $8,000 or $9,000 here right now. Allow them to pay for the staff person, put in a porta potty, and then there was more money left over. So if it were staffed on the weekends, that person sold the seasonal passes. After a couple of years, it might turn into something, but it would require putting somebody up there. So it's boiled down now in here, we struck everything except for the commercial passes. So Proctor's Boatyard, J.W. Marine, Curtis Marine, Barrett Marine, all the commercial operators who bring boats in and put them in would pay $350 for the right to use the ramp.
Okay. Yes, I was curious about that. So
Yeah.
that's just been modified from the way it reads right now, because from a practical perspective.
Right.
Okay, and then finally, I guess the launch service fees, they've been added in here because it's a whole new endeavor for us.
Mhm.
And you've got all the numbers here. So you put in a per ride pass fee and harbor tour fees, which are, first of all, I'm curious how they were arrived at. Is that just experience knowing what the story is in other surrounding towns? And B, how is that going to be administered?
Right, so the changes in here were actually recommendations from the HAC. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the HAC came up with this, so.
I assume they've got due diligence or something that,
Yeah, so
This is-
the discussion, the per ride pass, per my discussion today, rather than $10 each way for a ride to the boat, it's $10 per person each way to a boat.
okay,
So if it's two people showing up to go out to Kathy Bellata's boat, they would pay $10 for each person to go, $10 for each person to come back.
or they could leave everybody at the dock and go and get
And
the
go
boat and
and
come
go.
back.
Right.
You got 6 people or something, that's the way you would do
You know, in Kathy, maybe someone doesn't come back.
That'd be a really cheap ride all the way down to Winchester, but that's okay.
it.
So this is Manchester Mooring did $10 each way for a ride. So if a family showed up, they rode out for $10
Oh,
and then the family
per
rode back. The way I was envisioning was the $10 each way, but if dad showed up and went out to the boat, that's $10. Mom and the kids show up to go out to the boat, that's another $10. And then if they all came back together, that would be $10. So it'd be $30. Well, if again, it were 2 different groups, then it would be $10 per trip.
mhm.
So, but
So that's the way you landed per,
no,
No,
they
you're
ended
doing
at $10
per person per trip.
All right, so that'll
So-
get changed.
Is there anything, I didn't see anything here in the language, just following up on the launch service, how are people who have paid for those season pass, how are they letting you know they paid?
So they don't need to. We have a clipboard on the boat,
You have your clipboard, okay.
right, and I have printed out a sheet. Every single day, it's a fresh sheet. It has all the people who paid for launch service, their mooring numbers, contact numbers, boat names, all that information.
Have we introduced this per ride thing yet? Not
We
yet,
haven't
right?
approved it yet.
Okay. Well, yes, that was my point. Thank you.
Right.
Okay, because one of the things, we committed to the town to have a prepayment of the seasonal fees to cover the operational expenses. So this is gonna be gravy. And if and when we do approve a per ride pass, next season, you still have to get the 70,
I understand.
whatever.
I understand
Just
that.
can't replace
That's
that. Okay.
very clearly understood.
It's understood. It's not here in the regs anywhere. It's just in the business plan that we did.
So,
So I'm just wondering, we're not in a position to run a business on that variable income, right? Because we cannot use tax dollars for the service. So I just wonder if there's some language that we should be putting in this policy to make sure our commitment to the taxpayers is memorialized in case we all are not here and don't remember that, you know? I would feel better about that.
So perhaps putting lunch service fees and seasonal pass for $5.75, and then for future use or some notation
Yeah.
that when the service has proved itself
Yeah.
and we're willing to take on other things, that these are the suggested fees for those other things.
Yeah.
Not that this is permission to go ahead.
Right, yeah.
So,
Or if we want to do permission, if we want to give permission tonight, some language such that you still must collect enough seasonal fees in advance, you know, of the season to run the launch service. If that is not done, the service does not run, period. That is the language that I'm kind of looking for. So I'm okay with kind of, if Bion and the team feel they're ready to do the per ride passes and they want to try it out, I'm not opposed to that as long as it's very clear and in writing that the service does not run unless it is covered. The costs are covered by the seasonal fees. So I don't.
I have
approve it tonight.
one other caution in that area, which is that we have one launch. And
Right. Oh, I agree. I'm not saying we want,
I don't want to have people saying, I had to wait for 30 minutes for a launch
Right,
because it was off in area 7 on a per ride.
I agree, and maybe we can do both sets of language tonight. What you were asking for is to have the fees be denoted as something in the future, which I'm totally fine with. But I still want the language in the regs that say the service doesn't run at all unless the seasonal pass covers the operating cost.
what I've added is if the annual fee goals are not met prior to the beginning of the season, no per ride fee will be implemented.
No, that's not what I said. No launch
No launch
service will exist for the season.
Well,
And how many subscribers do you have now, by the way?
we're approaching 80. I had.
Okay, it's in the 70s.
2 or
Because what you
3
don't want to
headaches.
have happen is people saying, oh, I don't want to pay the $5.75.
Well, I understand, do the math.
You know, yeah.
At $10 a ride, it's a long time to get to
Yeah, but
57.
we don't know enough, Bion, about, well, you know,
It's $10 each way per person,
Right.
which brings it a little closer.
We're
Yeah,
not
per
gonna know
person
anything
is-
about the per ride fee if we don't implement one. How it affects the annual fee.
and to our point, though, I think what we said, this season was gonna be a learning season. But I'm okay with putting the per ride pass fee structure in here if you wanted to make an exception for an event, like I know you were thinking about the pancake breakfast on July 3rd, you know. So if you need to have something in here to cover that, just in case.
Rotary was going to do what they did last year. They paid Tommy Baker. I think it was $400 or $500
Okay,
for that.
so they would pay the town to run the lunch. Okay.
Yeah, we've been approached by 3 groups for tours, residents who want to do harbor tours. I turned down $500, not this weekend, the weekend before, for harbor tours.
Okay.
I don't see any reason to wait. The launches are running. We have,
Well, both boats, because when I went down to the.
yes, the other one is
Is
at
it
Crockers, and as soon as the railing is installed,
Okay, so it's not quite.
it will be operational, I'm hoping tomorrow. So we'll have the big boat up and running this weekend.
So not to use a technical term here, but sometimes when a new website is launched, it's called a soft launch. So that meaning that you don't advertise that there's a new capability available, but you can test out your website just by word of mouth and letting people know, hey, go check this out. So if what you're saying is you want to do some learning,
I've
I don't-
run 2 launch services. I pretty clear understanding of.
okay, so I think, I haven't heard you address Ann's concern, which is also my concern, is people who paid $575
Let's see if-
for, right?
I-
What's the expected pickup time on a busy Saturday, and how can you do tours?
Can't,
Yeah.
right, so if we're gonna have a tour. And it's pre-booked, then we will have another launch driver with the other launch operator. The original discussion was that most of the time that the launch was not gonna be in service. I would press it into service if we were going to have a pre-booked tour. I would not do a pre-booked tour on a Saturday afternoon, evening with those 2 launches because the vessels don't have the capacity for that. So this is all part of, I've run 2 launch services that did harbor tours. I understand the assets that we have and the capacity of those and what they can and can't do. So it's about using the good judgment of experience to make sure we don't get in trouble operating a harbor tour.
That's, I am hearing all of that. I still haven't heard the answer,
About
which is, what's the expected pickup time? Given all of that you said,
you,
what are you planning on?
you can't plan.
Okay,
If you.
but what's the
talk to-
expectation? Maybe I didn't phrase it well.
If you
What is the
talk-
expectation you're setting for
If
those?
you talk to the launch operators for William Launch last year, Saturday and Sunday afternoons are the busiest. Usually it wasn't a half an hour. Sometimes if a boat has to go all the way unplanned, we cannot predict who's coming down, when to go to their boat. We can't predict when they're coming back. It's very much, we're gonna call when they call, and we will go as quickly as we can. If you're on the launch and you know you're gonna be late, you communicate that. You communicate that as the operator to the person you're going to pick up. I have a pickup here. I will be there as quickly as I can, but I'm headed into the inner harbor with a drop off right now. So this has come up before. I can't give you a prediction of how long it's gonna take every single time.
No, but you said generally, if it's really busy, it could be anywhere from
It
30+ minutes.
could be a half an
Okay, that's,
hour, could be a half.
not, I'm not looking for 22 versus 23 minutes here, so.
If you're communicating with those people, I used to run out of Congress Street in Salem.
Yep.
Derby Wharf.
Yep.
All the way in there with 1 launch and have to go all the way to Naugust Head and Marblehead with 1 launch and service hundreds of customers. And sometimes it was a lot longer than half an hour. I never had a problem with 1 customer because they understood what they were paying for.
Yep.
And I
That's the key.
communicated.
Yeah, that's the key.
Are you expecting that in some trips you might serve multiple parties?
Oh, yeah.
I expect if you got 2 boats that aren't too far apart, yeah, I'm here, and then I'm 6 boats
Yeah.
away, I'm picking you up,
That's,
so long as you haven't got,
I
crazy number of
can't
people.
imagine not doing that.
okay,
The big boat has a capacity for 24 passengers.
well, then, yeah,
We're gonna maximize the capacity of that boat to reduce trip times to the minimum we can.
So
What-
I have one,
We talk through with the board first, and then we take people in.
I have to,
Another question.
Other question. How do we incentivize people, the seasonal passes? We're looking at 28 times out in the boat. Okay, 28 and 3/4. At $20, if they do the $10 in, $10 out, that's 28 trips. And that gets that.
it's a lot of trips.
It's a lot of trips.
Yeah,
How do we
sure.
incentivize people to pay the money up front, thus keeping the launch service afloat, as it were, versus, I don't see myself doing 28 days on a boat.
So the expectation for the folks who are paying for the $5.75, they don't want to deal with paying every time they come down. They don't want to pay a separate fee for other people coming out to their vote. They want to pay the annual fee. And that's why we were able to get the numbers we get. There's not a customer who's ridden the launches, Manchester Marine, since 2020, who doesn't know that there is the option for a per ride fee. They all know, well, what's your preference? The majority, the vast majority, want to pay the annual fee because it just covers them. They don't have to worry about, my wife or my son and granddaughter are coming down later. They're getting a ride.
And I guess the other question would be,
Mhm.
can we prioritize?
Yeah, what is your priority for, what's your service priority?
Service priority is anyone who pays for launch service gets it. If you're paying the town $20 or $30 or $40 to get out to your boat, $30 or $40 to get back, well, that's.
But I think what Brian is saying is, let's say you get
We don't-
10 calls.
I don't make a distinction. I don't make a distinction between the seasonal and, in my experience, the passengers don't expect there to be a distinction. That's my experience.
That's interesting.
How is this payment administered? You got something, some software or what?
Well, so, I've had initial talks with DACWA. I think there's two ways to do it, get DACWA to, put the per ride fee on there. And then folks could become members of DACWA, just like the app, just like all the folks over at Reed Park. Then, once they've entered their name and their payment, they come down to the boat, they can just request the ride and we approve it, and then we get on and we go. The other option for the folks who don't like apps would be for us to create, the harbor department create a book of, 20 rides, 10 rides, whatever it is. They can come to town hall and purchase that. And then use those on the boat. That's the other method. We're not gonna take cash.
No.
That's not an option.
What is the cost to use the app to us?
It's 2.9% right now.
So, I don't know if you've considered Venmo, that's another.
So I will consider anything. It's all about what the accountant and the treasurer say we can
Right,
do
that's what
as a municipality, because we are.
Is it possible to just, what I'm hearing from the board is that we're not understanding how customers don't expect a different level of service if they're paying a different level. It's a very interesting conversation we're having. I'm wondering if we could potentially give approval for the harbor tours. And I'm not sold on the per ride fee right now personally, but I might be okay with it.
Well, let me ask this. I mean, we've reached the goal, right?
Right.
That we needed to reach and surpassed it. So why can't we do the per ride fee this year?
Okay.
And as
Not-
part of,
Maybe not implement it until we have all that paid for.
we've already
It's
collected.
all paid.
We've already done that.
No, I'm saying next year.
Oh, right,
Yes.
right. So we
Yes.
can make that an annual piece of, and that sort of becomes moot, as Kathy pointed out, because if we don't collect that money, then there's no lunch service.
Right.
Towns.
So there's peer pressure,
Right.
you know, all the people. Yeah.
So I guess what you're saying is there's no harm in implementing it this year, other than if you take on too many per ride fees, you risk alienating the customers who paid up front. There's that risk. If you're really not giving them a different level of service, and there's always that risk of displeasing the customer.
Poor service upsets everybody.
Right.
But
But if you pay $575 for something and you're getting poor service, that's different than if I pay $10, you know? So,
You run these programs in other harbors. What percentage of the rides that you give are non-subscriber rides?
It's very small.
I mean, I would expect it's pretty small.
It's less than 5%.
Okay,
That's a rule.
so.
that's, then I'm not worried too much about it.
That's a good point, though. Is there a way we can bound it? I mean, is there a way you can think about operationally? I can only take, or it's just so crazy, there's no way for you to plan.
So certainly I will tell you that there were times when per ride folks showed up. And I guess I would say they did get a lesser level of service because I had to say, you're gonna have to wait
Right.
because I have these other customers.
See, that's what I'm getting at. Usually you have different tiers. If you have different pricing tiers, you have different levels of service. So if I paid the $575 and I walk up to the dock at the same time as someone who's got a $10 in their hand, I'm sorry, I want the ride first. And if there's only so much room on the boat, you know, so if you were to say that we prioritize, to Brian's point, the people who have put the money up front to make this service successful, if you can say that they'll get a priority if people arrive at the same time, I'm more likely to say yes to that. I
See,
just
I
don't
think-
think
I
everybody.
think everybody's getting on the boat.
Right, but I'm just saying on a busy day, if there's not enough room on the boat,
Or
I
if
think
people are
everybody's
going in
getting
different
in
directions.
different directions.
I think
right?
everybody's getting on the boat
I
and
think
going there and there and there.
People who paid the $575 deserve to go first if they show up at the same time and there's not enough room.
Yeah, I agree.
I
with
also
that.
think you'll get a lot of feedback from your customers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is basic
In
customer
real-
service.
In real time.
Yeah,
Right.
those people might not be customers next year.
Exactly.
I think they'll tell you first.
Yeah.
I think they'll let you know, gee, I wasn't very happy.
And that's absolutely right. That's-
Okay,
that's correct.
so perhaps we say, if a complaint shows up, we will allow the per ride fee, not advertised, but if somebody wants to do it. I don't think the tickets spot it,
I'm not a fan of the ticket, that they could be.
but to see if Venmo can be made to work.
I'll ask Jennifer and Andrea if Venmo is possible. And continue to reach out to Doc.
And so you, but if complaints show up in our office.
I don't like the idea of waiting for a complaint. You know, the customer service
I think we
business,
have to anticipate it.
that's right. I think we just need to
I'd
be
be
clear that if you pay the $575, you get priority over somebody else who.
How does that work when somebody who just walked up and paid $10 has taken the launch out?
No, what I mean is if, you know.
So the person who paid in advance.
Yeah.
Somebody, the launch has just left.
Right.
With a $10 person,
That's all I can do. Yep, understand.
and
In that situation, there's nothing that can be done. All I'm saying is if, you know, you get a line of people waiting for the launch and it hasn't, and it's still out there somewhere, and the people who paid the $575 ought to get on the boat first. I don't know.
I understand. The launch never ran full.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
I think
Once
you're getting
It's
on.
been open.
Okay,
If we
that's
reach
good.
the point where that launch is running full like that,
Okay,
that changes the metric. It
Yes,
changes
okay.
how we have to approach.
Mhm.
But given the past operational experience in this harbor,
right.
I would say we're plenty safe to try the per ride fee. You know, I like to think I'm pretty sensitive to customers' needs and expectations, and where we're going. And nobody in this room will be more sensitive to complaint. In
I guess-
trying to correct.
I guess what we're saying was we don't want any complaints.
Well, and I think the other
I
thing
want
is that
them less than you do.
I
Right.
want the perception that people are getting value.
Value for what
that
they're paying, yeah,
575.
yeah.
Okay, I don't know how we provide that perception.
Well, you increase the per ride fee. For one,
Maybe,
Yeah.
okay.
Is it? Is it?
Well, they did it. They already made it $10 per person, which I think is good. As opposed to $10 per ride.
And I pay $20 to go back and forth.
Well, I think we're being, to
being.
Brian's point, I think we're being generous here, not just on the per ride fees, but we haven't even talked about the transient fees, which I'm sorry, we are being way too generous there. How many, think about how many trips or whatever, how many people, is $10 the right number? I guess, should it be higher?
I
You
think
don't want to disincentivize people from paying the $5.75.
You
is what
want
Brian's
my
getting.
opinion.
Yeah.
The original fee structure of $10 one way, $10 the other way, two-way both was the right fee. If it's gonna be $10 per person, so be it. I think it's too high. If you wanna make it higher, I think that will be too high. I think that it will not interfere with our per ride, 575 customers. And as far as whether you're paying the 575 or the per ride, again, nobody on the launch knows. Everybody's getting on the launch and going for a ride. Particularly if it's not a ticket that's being handled. It's if I feel like it's getting to a point where we need to be concerned and approach a change, I'll do that before it reaches a critical mass of the 575 customers saying, I'm not getting what I paid for.
Or I don't need to pay the $575
Yeah.
because I can do it for, $300 based on the number of trips I take out to my boat.
I
No.
Okay.
When we're,
we didn't experience that and charge $20 for one trip for that. And
of course, when we're talking to you.
Yeah.
You're sitting here, but most of the time, you're not driving the boat. This all has to be communicated to your folks. Now, I have confidence that you and the team will be sensitive to all of this. I'd like to hear, come back, I don't know, at the end of July. How's it going?
if you want an example of how harbor staff is perceived, then go on marinas.com and look at the fact that Manchester is rated as an elite harbor because of how we treat the customers coming into our docks here in Baltimore. We're in the top 2% in the country. And those compliments, one after another, after another, it's about the staff, not about me. You're right, I'm not the one.
Yeah.
But they understand they're here to provide a service. People are paying for the service. It's driven into them. We are here to make sure people are getting the value for their dollar. And just like at the dock, that's exactly how we approach it on the launch. There's no difference. Top 2% in the country.
Something better.
So, all right, so I'm willing to give it a shot, but I still want the language in there that the launch doesn't go. not that.
Already out of there.
Are we done with the launch? Because
I got-
there's other stuff to talk
I'm
about.
done with
I
it.
have one question about it. The tours,
Yes.
are there limitations on what they can bring with them? And I'm thinking about alcohol.
Alcohol, right, so, I think that the town, you folks could certainly set some parameters, but nobody's bringing cases of beers. If it's a private, harbor tour, if it's the harbor tour where it's $25 a person, they're essentially going out for a half-hour ride. And we may be going to pick up boaters at their boat or pick up boaters, they're basically going on a launch trip. We're not gonna have alcohol.
I'm thinking about the larger,
Yeah, the larger groups up to 24. I frankly, the law is you can have open containers on a boat. If somebody wanted to bring a bottle of wine, I don't have a problem with that. There's not gonna be mixed drinks. There's not gonna be
This is
beer.
for a half-hour tour,
No, this is for an hour.
Private?
tour.
But 1 hour tour.
An hour.
1
tour.
hour.
What's the liability?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're doing an awful lot very fast and we're a few weeks into the season.
I don't think our liability.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's no alcohol. That's easy.
No
That's easy
alcohol.
for me. No alcohol.
And that
You
should
have to
also
get-
be in
you
the
have to get a
regs.
certificate just to, over Tuck's Point, and it's the same thing, right?
Mm.
Right.
No alcohol.
Pretty good if you wanna have alcohol at touch point.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this,
Yeah.
I mean, the precedent's already set.
Yeah, we don't have to offer booze cruises.
Okay, yeah,
I'm perfectly happy not to.
It'd be easy for you.
Yeah.
so that should be in the regulations as well.
Are there questions?
I had one on the transient fees. Still $8, why?
Because the $8 isn't where we make, it's the overnight where we really.
I
Over the
know,
course of the summer, the $8 does add up. We want people to spend the money and spend the money at the businesses.
right, right,
So.
but I'm just saying, it's still, it hasn't been raised in how many years?
2019.
Okay, so 5 years, it hasn't been raised.
Mhm.
And like I said, other places are charging 20, I'm not saying we go up to 20 or $30 an hour, but why not 10? I mean, is there a problem with charging 10?
It's,
I mean, I was there on Sunday, and I heard we had, the transient dock was full and people were being turned away because it was a beautiful day. And if they had to pay $10 instead of the 8, I don't think we would have had any fewer customers. I think we need to keep up our fees,
that's fine with me.
just because sometimes I've noticed a hesitation to keep the fee, to raise the fees, but then we get into a situation where they're so underperforming that we have to do a big jump, and I'd really rather avoid that. So I think raising the fees after 5 years of them being flat, I think is very reasonable.
I have no problem
What's the
with that.
number 10?
James Franklin.
Jamie's
James, oh, wow, he must be famous. James, isn't he like an actor? James Franco?
I'm sorry?
James Franco, isn't he an?
If you want to take the
Franco.
call, don't worry, you will get an opportunity. to
No, it's
speak.
all right. My concern, and I can live with $10, I wouldn't go any higher than that.
No.
The idea is still trying to drive business into town.
Yeah, I don't think $2 is gonna be.
But, you know,
Maybe
it's even-
break it.
right, it's anything beyond that starts to get a sense of taking advantage. I think we don't have any parking. This is what we're trying to do is have the waterfront become an economic engine during the summer season. So I want to keep it as reasonable as possible.
Yeah,
You are
$10 is,
parking though. You don't have, you're not bringing a car.
That's what I'm
No,
saying.
that's just it. We don't have any parking for cars, but let's bring people in by boat.
it's still a very good deal.
No, I
Just say
don't
that.
disagree.
Yeah.
And I think that, we talked to businesses, I think they'd be quite happy. I mean, I don't know, they don't want anything that's gonna dissuade anyone.
No, $2, this, I'm telling you,
So,
they'll pay the $10.
$10. I should reach out to Doc Law right
Yep.
away and get them to.
Yep.
Change that.
Questions on the rest of the regulations?
Oh, I'm sorry, just one more. The dredge assessment, why? Just curious as to how you arrived at the price for the dredge assessment.
I didn't, it was the harbor advisory committee. I don't know why it was that. But that was.
I think we should know why. Like,
It's been that for a couple of years now.
Officially.
It's been 2 or 3 years. It was supposed to be a driver for collecting money for dredge fees. Currently goes into the general,
oh, so I'm sorry, this is not a new fee?
but 2 or 3 years old.
Oh, okay. For whatever reason, when I read it, I
Well,
got the,
it shows as a new fee. It wasn't in there
Oh, yeah.
before.
okay, so we've been charging it, we just
It
wasn't
charged,
on the
Yeah, the
document.
third
Got it.
year
Okay.
charge.
Okay.
It's going into the general fund and not the waterways fund?
So as far as I know, the only thing that goes in the waterway fund, our usage fund, are mooring fees, half of the excise tax and waitlist fees.
This is part of the mooring fee, I thought. We can check with Andrew.
Check with Andrea, because that certainly should
Absolutely,
be going
yeah.
into the,
I mean, that's the point of it.
That is the thing. Yep. So, the idea was to have money specifically targeted being saved towards dredging.
Right, and so, like I said, when I first read it, I thought it was something new that was being introduced, and I was wondering how we settled on that fee. I'm
Yeah.
perfectly fine with the $250, but I do think that when we charge fees, we should have some rationale for them. So I think,
You have no idea how complicated this gets.
yeah, but I'm just,
The Manchester Surge charges a very hefty mooring fee or waterways use fee. Higher than, well, I haven't looked at it in 3 years, but at the time we were highest on the East Coast.
No.
so we charge a lot for the
I,
mooring.
I think there's some communities that might be catching up. In Manchester, at $15 in total is. I don't know how-
Our mooring fees are grossly illegal under state law.
That's the other part of the complication. The state law says specifically that the mooring fee should reflect the cost of providing a mooring, not the space, just the certificate. So, it should be, 50 cents.
Yeah, every community
Every
is
community.
grossly overcharging,
Yeah.
every single one.
I don't think we're doing anything different.
Well, no, we're not doing anything
Okay.
different. And we
We're
have
just
good
doing
reasons for what we're doing.
Right.
And it's splitting out, rather than increasing the mooring fees
Right, you're adding the
altogether,
dredge.
you're adding the dredge fee as a separate. So that's what I mean when it's a little complicated.
Because the dredge fee is only charged to mooring.
No,
It's not.
no,
No.
all voters,
All voters,
slip
holders as well.
holders. as
Okay.
well.
Okay, that makes sense.
The Reed Park dock, one thing it represents is the opportunity to generate the revenue to maintain this harbor without continuing to go
Mhm.
up at the expense of just the boaters in the harbor.
This lets us get money from the transits.
Well, right, so there used to be 3 docks that were overwhelmed and abused by out-of-towners. Now those out-of-towners last year, they contributed $32,000. Paid for all the staff.
Yep.
All the maintenance of that facility, and put money into the general fund. So the revenue that we can collect over here, once we finish this expansion,
That'll be good.
will grow.
Yeah.
I don't think the town will need to go up on mooring fees, slip fees again. We're collecting it largely. off our-
Doing the overnighters and yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll try again. Anything outside of weeks and lunches? Okay.
We need to formally approve anything.
We probably should approve all of the regulations at once rather than the fees separate, or
Right.
unless we really want to do the fees separately. And there is,
Or regulations.
Well, there are lots of changes in there. I like to kind of read them as they,
To the fees.
well, yeah, because I know you were
Okay.
taking notes there.
I was making changes.
would it make sense to defer? Make this just the discussion and ask for a clean copy for our next meeting for the vote?
Is there a time?
Yeah, you gotta- you
Well, we're gonna lose 2 weeks on.
We're gonna lose
these.
revenue.
Yeah.
We're gonna lose revenue, we're gonna lose harbor tour money, we're gonna lose revenue. You know, the idea is to-
anyway?
you know,
Okay, so having been through the fees, do I have a move to approve that section of, the mooring regulations labeled other fees?
As a
Friendly
Friendly
amendment,
amendment.
friendly amendment.
Yeah.
With the change of the transient fee being raised to $10.
it's already done.
Well, it's not in the document that we're looking
You
at.
have to document the law.
And the document doesn't say per person.
Yeah, that's the other change.
And I think,
And this caveat that the seasonal pass must cover the annual cost.
Yes,
and there's there should be something somewhere that says that there is a time limit to the overnight stays at Root Park.
It's 14 days by, the grant requires no more than, you can't stay longer than 14 days. That's the absolute maximum.
I think it should be, if somebody looks at the regulations, they shouldn't have to go look at the language in the grant.
Is that cumulative?
Yeah.
14 days in a row. Okay, in total in a
For
season.
For a season. That- You get all that, Debbie? Right, recorded.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I've already put that in here, actually. 14-day maximum stay.
That implies a contiguous
For-
14 days.
Yeah,
For a season, for season.
Okay.
Still a deal.
Oh,
It's cheaper than a slip. Anyone who's got a,
yeah,
trailer their boat, leave it there for 14 days, that's 7 weekends. Cheaper than.
We have people that work every weekend. Over 5 or 6 years. We've never had anyone stay 14 days yet, but 10. No.
And so is that friendly? Is that, I mean, I'm not sure where I started a friendly amendment, but then I got
Okay.
hijacked.
I personally would prefer that we see the fees written out as we want to approve them, rather than relying on our notes and memory. I realize that we would lose 2 weeks worth of potential income, but is that a problem for anybody?
not a big problem, no. I mean, so long as it's, when's the next meeting?
So
The
17th.
I
We
guess
have any occasion to get together before then?
Yeah,
I could ask that, I'll ask. I feel pretty strongly I've added all of the concerns in here that you brought up.
Maybe
If you
just-
could vote to approve those, I'll provide the clean copy. And if you see that I've missed something, I
Okay.
can amend it. And get it to you.
yeah, you're saying, let's vote on the numbers and worry about the policy. Because there are policy issues here that's not affecting so much.
I think more, let's vote on the fees. And let's not get caught in the weeds as to.
In the policy issues. Okay,
I will ask again. Can I have a motion and to approve the other fees as we have agreed and adjusted them?
Second. No, I'm sorry, I will.
and I will second that, yeah.
Okay, Jeff,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
and says yes.
John, yes.
Okay. Are there questions on the other regulations from the board? Mr. Starkey?
Yes. Jim Starkey, 13 Tux Point Road. There's one section I want to take very strong exception to in the revised regulations. And it's never in the history of Manchester have we permitted boatyards to rent moorings by the season. And that has changed in this. And
He's talking about page 18, top of the page.
And let me give you the history on this, because it's very important. And that is, there's this thing called the public trust doctrine that goes back to the ancient Romans that holds that the sea bottom is not owned by a town, state, government, or king, but is held in trust for the people. And that is the basis of Massachusetts law as well. Chapter 91 of Massachusetts law grants administration to towns subject to state rules, and there are a lot of rules having to do with sea bottom use, moorings, and whatnot. The DEP has the right to grant licenses for exclusive use of sea bottom if and only if it serves a public purpose. A boatyard serves a public purpose. I mean, it services boat, we would not have those without boatyards. And can be reasonably granted a license for operational purposes, if they do. Until 2008, Manchester Marine had a single mooring permit, C-136, but was allowed by the then harbor master to drop as many moorings as they want. There was no check at all, and they had to pay the princely fee of $100 for that. We suspect there are other considerations, but we don't know. I have no idea how the 12 moorings to Manchester Marine were granted, but I'm quite sure that they were never on the waiting list. But let's just ignore that for the time being. The boatyards, however, are not allowed to rent moorings by the season, until today at least. No boat can sit on a boatyard mooring for more than 2 weeks. To do otherwise would be let well-heeled individuals jump the waiting list and get moorings that legitimately belong to people on the waiting list. And the cost to get a boatyard mooring will probably be at least 10 times what it costs for a mooring fee. By moving to double anchored floats, Manchester Marine has almost doubled the number of berths they have, a number far beyond their operational needs. The original moorings given to Manchester Marine were for boats that were waiting for parts, for boats that are waiting to be pulled in the fall, for boats that have been launched in the spring, waiting to be rigged and worked on, and that's completely reasonable. And, 7, which is what they had about 1910, was completely reasonable and there was no problem. But by going to double anchored floats, they have doubled that number from 12 to 22. And that is vastly in excess of what they need for operational use. We just should not enable people to jump the mooring wait list, to rent moorings or float space that's unneeded for boatyard operations. This is unfair and contrary to the doctrine of public trust. We should hope that Manchester Marine has excess mooring and anchored float space. They will release the excess, be distributed as law provides to people who spent more than a decade waiting on the mooring list. So I think that this is very bad public policy. I think that it's a very, very bad idea. It's unfair to people on the waiting list. It's unfair to people of Massachusetts. And there's just no basis in philosophy or law for this.
Thank you. Brian?
Sure, so, the 12 moorings that Manchester Marine has had since before I got here, and the 5 moorings that Crocker has had since before I got here.
But Manchester Marine didn't have permits for those moorings. They just had moorings. I have the records by me.
Well, Jim, I'm happy to talk about this with you. But don't interrupt me,
I'm sorry.
okay?
Yes.
Fair enough. When I took over, there were 12, and there were 5, and then there were 600 some odd other moorings. Over 100 moorings that had been illegitimately used, illegally used, moorings owned by dead people used inappropriately. It was endemic. It was a huge problem in this public. I could have come in and taken moorings away from people who had moorings that weren't supposed to have them. Or I could come in and do what I had done before. We're starting here. We're going to have a clean wait list. We're going to take what people had. And we're going to move forward. Nobody came forward to me and said, in 2008, there was one. My records went to 2011. The records that I received showed that Manchester Marine had 12 moorings in the database owned by the town. Crocker had 5 moorings that were owned by the town. I required that they get the state and or federal permits required for those moorings. That's what I did. Same for the 2 for the yacht club. Yacht club had 2 moorings. They weren't permitted. Yacht clubs, marinas required to be permitted just like any other commercial non-municipal entity. That's the way it was. Didn't take them away. Didn't see why I should. Get it. The wait list was long. People were frustrated. People were angry. We had well over 100 moorings that did get reassigned over the first 2 years. Manchester Marine didn't lose theirs, neither did Crocker's. the town could have said, you will take those away. The town did not. I made them follow the rules for how they're permitted. The DEP required that they make those ones, as they sit today, bow and stern with floats on them. They did not put a restriction on how they could be used. The town can put a restriction on them. The DEP is the final arbiter of moorings in the state with the 10A permit, which I issued as an agent for DEP. So if the town wants to move ahead and tell them how they can or can't use those moorings or make them give away part of it, that's fine with me. Okay? I didn't assign any of those moorings. They were there. I'm here to serve. I will do what you ask. Simple.
Madam Chair, I have a question. On these moorings,
Yes,
so this, the reason it's in red on this document is because,
The DEP required to be in our language. The DEP wanted the town to make whole from their perspective that we would enforce if Manchester Marine is going to be allowed to do their finger docks, which they have a permit for, off their main dock, then their moorings couldn't be single point free swinging because the channel would be too
I'm
congested.
trying to understand, so they've had these moorings, the purpose of this new language is to specify the type of moorings?
Right,
No. well,
they can't make them single point moorings again without losing the moorings.
Okay,
what they have taken out is that under the previous regulations, the moorings that they weren't using for servicing boats at the moment could be rented to transients.
we took that out.
That was taken out. And what that means is that there is no limit on how long somebody can use those moorings.
Right.
Now,
But they're only supposed to be
That's
used for
still saying-
service.
If I could correct you.
no, just,
But B says the permitted boatyard moorings are used as support mooring for vessels during service
Service
procedures.
right,
So doesn't that limit it?
So they can't go on Docwa and resell their moorings like an Airbnb, right?
That's what I'm,
That's-
Yeah,
Yeah, so that wasn't the intent of that. The intent was to say that is one of the services that they can offer, one of the things they can use those moorings for.
That's not
That's
how I
not how
read
it
this.
reads.
That's not how it reads.
So-
No, it reads like we are restricting
Yeah,
the commercial boatyards from doing anything other than using those moorings for service purposes.
So the town can.
Which I'm okay with.
It wasn't
Yeah.
intended to read that way.
is that Manchester Marine's understanding also, or do you think they're using for lots of different things?
Well, I think that they use
They're renting them out.
I think they use them to generate revenue for their business.
I don't
That's what I
agree with
think.
that. No, I don't.
Mr. Starkey, please. Do you
Yes.
have a comment?
Yes. That is not a legitimate reason under chapter 91. And what I wanted to correct you earlier is that we still have a prohibition against boatyards renting moorings by the season. What is on this is a change to this policy to let people
Mhm.
who don't want to put on the waiting list to jump the line by paying a lot more money.
Thank you. They have, there's also, we've mostly been talking about C, which says that, which has the result of eliminating the 14-day limit. So allowing the yard to rent space on their fore and aft floats for a season, Number D is somewhat worse.
Right.
and I think should be struck, D should not be struck.
Yeah.
What D says is for the vessel owners for permanent use.
The word permanent should not be in there. Absolutely right.
Well, the whole thing is struck out in the copy that we have, so
Yeah,
it sounds
that's
like
right.
now we're gonna allow the boatyards to rent, lease, or loan their moorings for permanent use to somebody, and I don't agree with that, I agree
Right,
with
I don't
it.
agree with that.
We should leave D in, I think is what we're saying, we should
Yeah.
not remove it,
Okay.
because they should not be taking town moorings and then making a profit off of them. They have slips to sell, don't they?
That C is taking moorings.
No.
C would allows the boatyard yards to rent moorings by the season.
Okay, I was reading,
Because it's struck out.
Yeah,
But that's struck out. Transient boaters, that kind of competes in a sense with our docks.
Reed Park, right?
So we shouldn't be competing for with the businesses. We offer something that they don't with our docks. We don't offer transient moorings. Our pricing shouldn't compete, I don't think, with businesses. It's like the $8 that we charged at the dock, they charged.
Yeah,
We want the money spent in the businesses. If we make enough to cover our expenses, the dock at $8, that was, charge eight, now it's 10, right? So.
I mean,
But I guess what we're
in general,
saying
I
is-
don't have a problem with C so much. A big problem with D.
Yeah.
But
oh,
that's why I'm asking you. In other words, you don't see that as a competition necessarily directly with what's going on in Reed Park.
I hope not.
No,
Well, I agree that it's not a competition with Reed Park, but it feels like, to Mr. Starkey's point, we're allowing a business to make use of moorings for significant profit. When if the town would issue those moorings, we would collect,
oh, we also.
so we're collecting the fees.
Yes.
Okay, so regardless, we're not gonna get any more money if we decided not to allow Manchester Marine to use those moorings, we wouldn't be getting any more money. Okay,
We collect $15 a foot for every boat that they
Okay.
put on
So
the
the-
line for the season.
the concern though is you have a profit-making business
Mhm.
taking up moorings when we've got a 20+ year waiting list for moorings. That's, to me, a legitimate concern, and
How many are they renting?
I believe it's 5 that they rent.
For the
Others
season.
are for service.
Right.
Is that what you're saying? 5 of the 20,
Yeah.
where's 27, 29?
I'm sorry,
Yeah, 22 plus 5,
One up is the action.
27.
Spaces?
Yeah,
They've got 22, so the 10 floats are,
but 22 plus the Crocker's 5.
plus the Crocker's 5,
So we've
so
got 27.
27 total.
Altogether.
and so,
And out of those 27, you think 5 are seasonal?
I'm sure Skip has 2 or 3 that are seasonal as well. I would absolutely think that's right. Manchester Marine has 5, Crocker has 3.
3.
for this particular entity, do we have any benchmarking data? We're not the only, harbor around, so what do other harbors do regarding this particular situation? Could we get some information before making any changes? I personally.
Do you know offhand?
Camden, Maine,
Well, I'm just thinking Beverly, Salem, Gloucester.
Beverly has, right, so if you go up into Beverly, into the rivers, go up to Danvers, there are new floats.
Mhm.
I don't know how many are commercial.
I'm just looking for.
What town or city is letting a marina you re-rent moorings.
right in the town harbor. I mean, we're not talking so much of, the Danvers River. I mean, that's kind of, it's not a centralized harbor. Like I'm thinking Marblehead or Salem or,
So those harbors aren't, they're not configured appropriately to be able to put in moored floats.
I'm not, just to clarify my question, Byron, I'm not specifically asking about the moored floats. Just in general,
Yeah.
are private businesses allowed to get a mooring from the town and resell it at a profit? And if so, where else is that being done locally? Because this is something I'm not aware of.
There are several yacht clubs up in the Merrimack River in Newburyport to do that. The town doesn't collect revenue. The clubs collect the revenue. That is problematic. They don't pay into the town.
They don't pay anything.
No contribution.
I mean, here they're paying, what do you make an assumption on a length of a boat or so,
$15 a foot.
Yeah, but there's no boat on there and sometimes it's a 30-foot boat, sometimes it's a 50-foot boat. I mean, what do you just say, 50 feet times,
So we charge, what we do is have charged since 2012, a 40-foot minimum.
all right, so you just say flat assumption, okay.
So they pay $600 per on 10 until now they have 20.
And certain number of those are being used for servicing.
Well, right, so they have in the spring and fall,
They're all,
that's the real need, the spring and fall, those
they're all,
moorings are full of boats that are being serviced coming in from all over. So the business model says that spring and fall, these moorings are taken up by service vessels being serviced. The middle part of the season, they can sit fallow or they can generate revenue.
to transients.
Well, no, to Brian's point, can we get a piece of that? I mean, they're reusing a state
I
asset.
mean, we get our fee.
I want 50% of what they're making.
Yeah, it's what they're,
How do we
I don't
know
know
that?
I don't understand why we need to get 50% of.
I don't know, I'm just.
Their revenue.
It's a,
Mr.
I think
Starkey?
the bigger issue
Right.
is the question of fairness to the waiting list. That's the bigger issue. I don't really know how to address that.
But they need all of these
Well-
moorings in the spring and the fall,
Right.
so another,
Yeah,
the
because they
question
don't
is,
have
you're
the-
on there, you're not gonna be on there before July 1, and you gotta get out of there,
By Labor.
but
Day.
before Labor Day.
in the height of they're there at the height of the boating season.
Mr. Starkey?
The argument being made and the arguments made in favor of letting properties take over dredged space to the exclusion of any moorings suggest there's no bound on this. And if the boat yards can maximize their money by taking over the entire harbor, there's no stopping this. There is no check on this. We give them more moorings, we give them more space, we let them expand things. What is going to stop?
But we haven't given them more.
We haven't given them more moorings.
Or more space.
They started when we cleaned up the harbor with 12 moorings in one case and 5 moorings in the other. They still have 12 and 5. And I trust that if they applied to the harbor department for another mooring, they would be told, get on the waiting list. So yes, there is a check. Yes, Mr. Starkey, you may respond to me.
That idea was not applied to the expansion of the Crocker Marina.
That was a question of the planning board, and I'm not in a position to second guess the planning board at this point.
I'm just saying that the history of the town has been to never turn down anything that the boatyards want to do.
Thank you.
So I'm just, my opinion, we're paying a harbor master to monitor and do what he believes in the best interest of the town, and he's comfortable with the way everything's running right now. I think we move on.
Okay, I would like to have item D not struck. D is the thing that says for permanent use, which suggests,
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah,
but we will allow Bion's recommendation that the boatyards be allowed to rent space on their moorings for as long as they want. Seasonally. Yes, Brian.
In the interest of full disclosure, I went to Manchester Marine 8 years ago and asked if they would consider converting their moorings to Ballaston.
Mhm.
One of the main reasons I did that is because of the channel, which on an easterly, northeasterly, southeasterly was restricted in some parts down to room for one boat to pass. And they didn't want to do it because of the financial investment. Didn't think there could be a return on it. When they finally agreed when they tried to get the permits to put the fingers on their main float. And if you were to go out there today on your boat, come out under the drawbridge or come in from Texas Point, there's now a wide, clear channel with more than adequate room for two boats to navigate past each other in and out of the harbor. There's more than adequate room on the backside for the moored vessels. And we have a safer harbor to navigate. And if the end result is that they've taken up less space, made a safer, and increased the revenue, which helps ensure that they remain in business here, rather than the property being brought up and turned into private marina, which nobody will get a shot at, except for people who own a condo that was built on the property. Yeah, it's a lot of money. I couldn't afford it. Ever. But some people can. And some people get to have that access.
So I'm concerned about the time of season that we're discussing this. And the potential impacts on the two businesses. I think they should have an ability to weigh in as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
So I'm just suggesting perhaps that this is a conversation that we need to continue. I don't think, A, we're gonna resolve it tonight, nor do I think we're gonna really resolve it for this season. We may have to have the status quo continue for this season until we are able to.
Well, okay. The status quo is that they are limited to transients under the harbor regulations. They're limited to transients of 14 days. And I suspect that they have in fact rented that space for the season in violation of our regulations. So I don't know what the status quo is.
No, it's a good call. It's a good point. We need to understand that.
But
So what is the check on that? How do we know if they rented it out?
I asked them.
That's right.
So we get the answer. The real question is, do you want me to tell them they can't? Do you want me to tell them they have to refund that money? What do you want me to do if the answer is yes?
I think status
So
quo.
that's why I struggle with the time.
Yeah.
Status quo, we have to stay with status. If they've accepted money now for this.
Yeah.
Then.
okay, so we would grandfather
Grandfather for the season,
the usage for this season.
yeah.
but have them know that we are.
yeah, you gotta ask the question.
Mhm.
Okay. When you say rented for the season as opposed to a transient, because they would rent for a transient for a week.
That's allowed.
That's allowed. That's not a problem.
I have a question regarding that. So we talked about the fact that the Harbor Advisory Committee weighed in on the fees. Have they weighed in on this specific?
Yeah, everything that's read in here.
Interesting. Okay. I do think we need to revisit it. I agree the timing is tough to make any changes right now, but I would still like to get some benchmark information on, Salem, West Wampscott, or, somebody else that's not, Salem's big, but, Marlin is.
I would like to hear from the businesses too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hear from the businesses.
So right now, the reading with all of this red copy, they are authorized for transits. And under no condition shall they be rented or leased. That copy exists in this document right now.
It's a real.
Yes, but that's not red because it's new. It's struck out there, but it was there. So they shouldn't be renting now because it's in the document that they should be governed.
They have.
So
So ask that question.
that's the question. The question really is, if they are, what do you want me to do?
They're not gonna do anything this year.
Tell them we're looking
Well-
at.
They're on
Yeah.
notice that is an issue.
Mhm.
And I agree with Jeff, that they're gonna come in here and say, okay, what's going on?
Let them make them come to us.
Mhm.
And.
In violation,
Yeah.
are they in violation of the regulations is the question being asked. If the regulations don't state some type of, I hate to use the word punishment, but, fine or whatever, do we know what the consequence would be for violation of these regulations?
I don't think there's any consequence in the regulation.
So another reason for us to revisit this topic, because, a regulation or a law that cannot be enforced is pretty useless. And I think that's what we're struggling with right now. We may have a regulation, but we don't have an enforcement mechanism. So I would like us to think about that part of the equation as well. Whatever we finally decide to do, it needs to come with a very clear penalty for violation.
And is it our understanding, they need all of these moorings at the start of the season and the end, just because boats are moving?
Their boatyards, they have boats that come from all over.
Yeah, that they have to outfit and. take care of.
Rig and, less of the sailboats and more of the power boats, but if you go out there in the spring and fall, the transoms tell the tale.
Yes, there's all kinds of, I've seen them. And even during the year, of course, those may be trains.
Those trans-
Mr. Starkey.
To quote from their website. We offer customers the perfect combination of naturally sheltered location, water offerings that include slips, moorings, and fuel dock facilities for permanent customers and transients only.
Okay.
That sounds to me like they are in violation of our existing harbor regulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't suppose anybody knows if there's a hand up anywhere.
There's not.
Good. I think the sense of the board is that if the boatyards have rented moorings for the season, we're going to grandfather that for this season. That we will bring this up again in the fall, Debbie. And invite the boatyards to make their case. And that I think for the moment, we should leave both C and D not struck. We will come back and discuss it. Okay.
So can we put it on the action list as to
She's already
what
done it.
date,
She's there.
what date we want to, what month we want to have that discussion? So Bayonne's clear. Is it a September discussion or is it an October discussion?
I'd like to do it as close to the end of this, into the fall, but at the end of the season while it's still fresh.
October,
October,
first October meeting.
first
I wouldn't-
October
I
meeting.
wouldn't wait any longer.
Okay, with the exception of that area, I believe or with that, leaving C and D in place and grandfathering existing, I think should be ready to make a motion to approve the Manchester Harbor mooring and waterways regulations.
So moved.
Second,
John,
Yes.
Anne says yes.
Yes.
Kathy
Yes.
says yes. Well, that took longer than anticipated. Thank you.
We'll make it up on the backside. Thanks,
All
bye.
right, I'm educated.
Thank you, Bion.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah.
two,
look forward to hearing what they have to say.
Hmm. Right. Okay. The next one, oh, the Harbor Department Enterprise Fund discussion.
Oh, geez, we're not off this yet.
Um,
So
let's,
I think we should postpone it, but when we do discuss it, what I will need to understand is, could you outline what the basic criteria is for setting up an enterprise fund in general? When do we look to do that?
okay, why don't we open the discussion of this? We don't need to take a vote on it, but let's
Okay,
get, so that Greg and Bion have an idea of what our concerns are. Yours is
one
one,
understanding, what is the rationale for when you decide to set up an enterprise fund?
Fine.
okay, I would strongly recommend that the enterprise fund cover only the launch. And that the other fees go into the waterway, the mooring fees and the dock fees go into the waterways fund to be used for dredging. This keeps the launch service separate.
Yeah, I absolutely
yeah.
agree that the launch service is kind of like a quasi business and it needs to be separate.
And.
Is that why you would set up?
Having it as an enterprise fund allows it to fund itself. We don't have to.
Well, that was always the intent
That's my
anyway.
question.
Yes, well, the intent was that it would fund itself, but without an enterprise fund, the town would have to
Lay out money.
lay out money to pay for the season. This, we.
So it makes the accounting a little cleaner if it's an enterprise
And
fund?
yeah, this is why the
Is it just water and sewer? Are those the only enterprise funds in town?
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
And Parks and Rec for their, or is that kind of a like?
Revolving fund,
They're
revolving, they're not
Okay.
an
So
enterprise.
perhaps this should be a revolving.
Yeah,
That
Or
gets
the
back
launch.
to my basic question. What is the rationale for having a revolving fund versus an enterprise fund versus just normal budget?
Sure. I can't
And I
do it,
think
but let
we-
me-
think about it.
Get us a one-page email on that.
Something, let's find the one
Yeah.
that fits.
Fits.
Yeah. Okay, I think we should probably put that discussion on for next meeting.
So just in a nutshell, it's so the money comes in and it stays there as opposed to going to the general fund.
And then having to be
Then
allocated,
we have to either vote to move the money or whatever it is.
we allocated for the next
Well,
year and.
But I'm wondering if some of these funds are allowed to make a profit and others aren't, is that part of the criteria? That's why I'm asking, what's the criteria? Like, you know. Because some may be just a self-liquidating cost center and you're just trying to distribute costs and others are allowed to make. a
Basically, you
profit.
set up enterprise funds when you think the operation can be self-sufficient. To the extent possible, or water and sewer aren't 100% self-sufficient. when you
Yeah, but
consider
the-
capital, but on the operating side, they
Do they have fiscal years or they just go?
have fiscal years, and
Okay.
and you still have to appropriate the dollars.
But the Parks and
But the
Rec
money
is
that they
revolving.
make, money that they make stays with
Stays
the
with
fund.
yeah.
So you'd have money to maintain boats and things like
Yes.
that. You could
Yeah.
draw off that.
Correct.
But then the revolving fund has a
Revolving fund
purpose.
is designed for programs where you collect money and you spend those monies on those programs. So it's ideally set up for Parks and Rec. You don't know how many people are gonna sign up for basketball. They each pay a fee, but depending on how many people sign up, is depending on how many coaches you hire and
Okay.
how many reps you hire.
You want to raise it, but
So revolving funds are money in and immediately out for the services provided.
okay, you've answered the question there. All right. I'm good for.
So we can provide a little more detail. but
Yeah,
that's-
It's something that we really want to take out. Let it run for a year before we decide to change.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing on the agenda is to approve the Two Thorn Day proclamation.
I move that the board declare June 12th, 2024 as Sue Thorn Day in Manchester by the Sea.
Second.
Discussion. Jeff,
Yes.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Kathleen, I think my name is Ann, yeah. John.
What are we doing?
Just say
Not
yes.
that now.
Proclamation.
Yes.
No, that's the small business one.
This is, I have the,
Different topic.
I have, the-
Not to put it in the folder.
no, this is a different one. Okay.
One of them is,
This is Sue, though.
Oh, this is the fun.
That's fine. That's all signed.
That's everything.
okay. Liaison updates. John.
Let's see. Well, the DPW thing, that was already a topic here. We'll meet with the Council on Aging, Friends Council on Aging, June 24th to start to discuss money raising activities for the senior center. Greg and I, after the Council on Aging luncheon, which is Tuesday, the 24th. So they're getting, I won't say antsy, but they want, okay, how do we do this? What's going on? And they want to get going. So we're going to get a little oriented as to how that fits together. I know that Greg is still pulling, you would know perhaps, Brian, still pulling together the details on the,
Right, we still have to,
Contract.
we still have to get a purchase and sale.
yeah,
And a condo docs. The purchase and sale, what they've asked for is they want it permitted.
wanted what?
They want the zoning changed to allow it to happen. So I've already met with Sarah Melich, and the ZBA, to find out what the minimum amount of paperwork is required, basically a certified plot plan.
Oh, to change the footprint?
Yeah, well, to put that into the PNS.
Understood.
They want that included in PNS. So that, depending on what the status is of getting a certified engineer in here to do that, hopefully we'll have a PNS in their hands by August, I'm guessing.
Mhm.
Does that sound right? You were just walking the back. With, just
Yeah,
on the Council on Aging. The Masons would like to see the approval, the
Expansion permitted.
permitted, or at least approved at the ZBA level
Yeah.
prior to the, included in the purchase and sale.
Mhm.
And whether, I don't know, would you talking, all of it, is maybe August, we'll be able to get that PNS into their hands.
okay. Well,
And then
that
once
can go,
I'm
that can
assuming-
go in parallel with initiating the money raising activity. Neither one is directly dependent on the other. That's it.
Brian.
Pickleball.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Greg's seen the memo, as you all read, the vendor is delayed until July for the sound, panels. The upside to all this is now we can get the preferred green panels as opposed to the black panels. Okay, my suggestion is that until such times that happens, we maintain the same hours and the same disciplines that we've imposed from the beginning of the season. It's inconvenient for players, but it's also inconvenient for the neighbors, so everyone hurts a little bit.
Hmm.
That's just, okay.
Agreed.
And then I guess the parades, the 4th of July is moving right along. And I don't have any issues there. So, but that was a big thing to pick up on.
Just one thing, the Downtown Improvement Committee hosted a neighborhood feedback session with abutters of the Pine Street, Central Street, Bridge Street intersection. So that's where at one time they tried out the rotary concept. So this time, you know, they learned from that experience and there was a neighborhood feedback session last week and they gathered concerns and improvement suggestions and we'll be bringing that back to the broader Downtown Improvement Committee first and then I presume to the select board. Any recommendations? That's it.
What happened among the things that happened at the, school committee, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. They had an external review of their special education program. It ended about a year ago, but a year ago this time, they were having problems with their budget and didn't have time to hear the result of the review. In the meantime, they have acted on some of the recommendations. I'm sorry, it was kind of an alphabet soup. They had 2 parallel programs for different, and they have brought them together as recommended. The reviewers were quite impressed that they made that change, pointed out that 25% of the school budget goes to special education in one form or another. Reported that the problem is getting worse in general, that in this year's 3-year-olds, they have 7 cases of autism, which is a lot. Group
7 in a class,
class in.
What's a class, like 80?
Yeah.
So 10%?
That's in the district.
Is this in
Yeah.
Manchester or the district?
District.
Okay.
So it's not just the water, but we were all saying it was so clean.
Right, there's a particularly high cost for transportation in Manchester. Transportation happens when the kids cannot be dealt with in town and have to go to, and since we're doing more and more inclusion, the kids who are transported are in more and more need, so they often require an attendant with them on the, however they're being transported.
In transit.
In transit, and they tend to have to go further. Because they have more specialized needs. When we were sending a lot of kids to Landmark, it was relatively, the transportation was relatively uncomplicated, but now, the remaining cohort needs a lot of special services. And their final recommendation was that the special education department needs more administrators.
Of course it does.
And they apparently have actually made a policy that will allow them to sell advertising space at Highland Field.
Good.
So, that.
Now, school buses.
Thank you. Okay, that is what I have. I would give you a report from the MBTA zoning, but I think you've heard all of that very recently.
Yes.
Mhm.
Consent agenda, meeting minutes for May 20th, Coast Cure Bike Ride, Small Business Person of the Year.
I move that the select board approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion, Jeff,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Anne said yes.
John says yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to issue one.
4th of July coming up. So just normally, there's some logistical things to figure out for your part of the march. happy to help out, but usually.
John, is
Usually
your son
take on.
I think my son will drive the golf cart
pick up the
and
ball?
pick up the guy. He'll do what all the logistics are. And in fact, help distribute some of the candy. I know his daughter, who's now 5, but unloaded all the candy. I don't think the candy made Pleasant Street. He started throwing.
Yeah.
But she's a year older and we know more. And we need more flags though. We do need more.
Is there anybody who has a Costco account or similar,
I do.
who would be willing to pick up candy,
Yeah, tell me what to buy and I'll.
hard candy?
Hard candy. Oh, the.
No
the-
chocolate.
We'll put up with 90
The one
degree
that
weather.
Jolly Ranchers. and-
That's great.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. I won't be participating in the parade. My
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
granddaughter's birthday has been planned for her birthday date, so that's
Oh.
my permanent commitment for the next few years.
Great, but,
I picked up.
How
a lot
much-
last
How
night.
much candy should I buy? And where do you want me
I
to
don't
bring?
know if the candy,
I think we had 10 pounds last year.
I don't know what the candy weight was. 10
You
pounds?
can just get me the info. I'm going away for a week. We're gonna come back at the end of next week. I'll be happy.
Okay,
Okay, good. We also had some bunting and stuff that we took off and,
I've saved that.
good, okay,
So whatever it was, yes, all of it I have saved. I
good.
think we don't need any more than that, but we need probably 50% more flags. Well, we were running like 700 or 800 flags. We need like 1,200.
I will check. I think we had 400 last year, but
But whatever it is, we've got to go.
Yeah.
50 to 100%.
Yeah, we didn't make it past halfway down Pleasant Street.
Yeah, yeah, by the time we got to Pine,
Yeah,
Pine,
yeah,
it was all gone.
People on Pine don't even realize they're on flags.
That's correct.
Right.
That's
Well,
true.
and then by that time, we just switched.
I know, if they don't know what they're there, they're not gonna miss it. I brought the water, I'll bring another case of water this.
Okay, great.
And I'm gonna look into getting a battery-driven bubble machine,
Oh, that's a great idea.
that would be fun.
which of course will have use even after the cart, because my grandkids speed of that. But so long as it's not a plug-in thing, it's battery, and we just,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
another,
That'd be
yeah.
cool.
See, bubbles.
yeah, then it's just automatic. It's hard going.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to. I gave mine away.
I know you did, but yeah. I like dancing around and blowing bubbles, but bubbles make people happy.
They do.
They do.
And from a machine would be great. Okay, having interrupted Greg.
No, that's great. That's great. Thank you for your efforts. So a couple updates on say emergency management preparations. One on wildfires. Thanks to Chief Smith and Gloucester had up an effort for the region to take a harder look at wildfires and their management and some of our trouble spots in the 4 communities of Cape Ann. So they put together a very comprehensive report, giving you the website here. We can make a link for it. The town website, has a number of recommendations that the various departments are in the process of digesting and prioritizing to be implementing over the next few years. So a good effort. I was able to obtain some grant funding that the city secured, and it was a good regional effort. So just want to flag that as a new effort. And similarly, on Wednesday, there'll be a tabletop exercise with, again, the 4 Cape Ann communities and Ipswich. We have about 85 people coming to the Legion on Wednesday to walk through simulation of a hurricane and what should be happening prior to the hurricane hitting, what should be happening when the hurricane is hitting, and what do you do after the hurricane has come and gone? What resources do we have? What are some of our holes in terms of what we think we know, what we don't know, identify some of those areas. Chief Michaud has taken a leadership role in this, done a very nice job. You may recall he attended the National Hurricane Center down in Miami, I think it is, last year, and he's bringing back some of that knowledge that he'll share with the other communities. We're working with our folks in NEMA and FEMA. We also have some fellow folks from the National Weather Service. They'll be coming as part of the exercise. So it's going to be very interesting, 4 hours, 4.5 hours or so. And I think we'll learn quite a bit. This is in part thanks to funding that Senator Tar and Representative Ferrante was able to secure for us. And so we're using those dollars to run this simulation. So I think it'll be a helpful exercise. A couple of products we already have from it. We produced a new video on sheltering. The high school serves as our primary shelter if we need it. There's also efforts to look at a regional shelter at one of the colleges that's coming together. And also a brochure on basic measures people should take in the emergency. We'll be publicizing those and getting those out.
So I plan to attend. I registered for that.
Yes.
Do you know how many of your directs are gonna be attending? How many of your direct reports?
At least 5, and then a number of their staff.
Good.
So yes, we'll be good attendance. So we'll do some follow-up with the after action reports in terms of some of the specific recommendations that they'll have. Yeah, I hope it's not too timely. It's predicted to be a much bigger hurricane season this year, but I hope we dodge it for sure. But it's good to be as prepared as one can be for big incidents like this. Talked about the pickleballs already. I've skipped that. The Town Post site is ready for its grand opening, ribbon cutting ceremony on the 14th from 1 to 3 p.m. One of you would like to give some comments? Welcome that. Just let me know.
That's what day of the week is
The
it?
14th, Friday the 14th. Again, it's from 1 to 3.
I'm from
Flag Day.
I'm around.
I'm around.
Yeah, great.
It's not even on my calendar.
Super. So, yeah, just some welcoming remarks and
Sure.
partnership that it represents with Black Earth
Mhm.
would all be good to comment on. So just looking ahead, a couple of the meetings coming up. So we're meeting again, obviously on the 17th for the regular meeting. There'll be an in-depth discussion on MBTA zoning. The hope is that it'll be ready to ship off to the state for their review after your meeting on the 17th. We'll also have presentation on the Masco Park redesign effort, where we had that 3-day charrette. We'll be presenting the ideas that arose from that charrette, and also the wayfinding group will be on that meeting as well. And then we've talked about a retreat in June. So I've thrown out a couple of Tuesdays, 18th or the 25th. If there's a preference, either one of those. It doesn't have to be those two, but those are just two starting
And
point.
I would actually get on
Right.
getting a date approved.
I think the 25th is a little bit easy. What time were you doing?
Thinking of it at evening time, we could bring.
25th is definitely easier for me, but if it has to be on the 18th, I can
I'm good for both.
probably get there.
I suppose I can
One or the other.
Food.
take Kathy. It's really
Can't
cool.
feed you, no.
Huh? Manicure.
Yeah, either way,
Have a life.
maybe the 25th might
I'm
be.
not babysitting after
Better for
school's
me.
out, so
So
25th
it
is
sounds like
a
a
little better.
a slight preference for the 25th.
25th, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that we'd bring some light food, at least some people don't go too hungry.
We can sit on a mooring.
Yes. Okay. That's
Too
it for
soon?
me.
No.
You're making me hyperventilate.
Right.
So that's
Okay,
that's
that's
good.
good.
So if we have time for just
Let's.
doesn't need to be a long conversation, but it'd be nice to touch base on this.
Yes.
Possible
Let's get
real estate.
pictures now.
Oh, yeah, picture not. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's just glad I fixed it. I think I'm gonna change.
While I was awake. Should have got me while I was awake.
Yeah, so you should be in the middle of the board.
I'm down this one, no, the other way. other
Let's
way.
go towards Kathy.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you centered.
Yeah, Ann's perfect. She's right in the center.
Fine.
All right, 1, 2, 3. I didn't get it, so it's not so. 1, 2, 3. I'm just gonna take a few. And keep over your head. That's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Looking good, gang.
We should have taken your picture, just crossed them. Photoshop.
Okay. Right. I move. Oh, no, sorry, I don't have it. Move that the select board enter into executive session of. Thank you. I had it right in front of me after all. Okay, I move that the select board enter an executive session for MGL chapter 30A, section 21A6, to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body and not to return to open session. And I do declare that an open meeting would have might have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position. Is there a second?
Second.
John?
Yes.
And yes,
Yes.
Kathy, yes.
Yes.
Brian, yes.
Jeff.
Jeff,
Jeff.
Yes, abstains.
All right, Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Debbie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie. Can I print this up again for the small business, because I put